really, we had doors open for us along the journey. So from Ubuntu, from the teams locally in South Africa, that continuous hand-holding and then throwing you in the deep end to really swim, sink or swim. I think that's such an important point as an entrepreneur, really taking your pivotal edge in your business and applying that to the application process. And I can't begin to start to tell you the credibility that TradeBricks, my company, which I started in 2019, gained from just being associated with Jack Ma, African Business Heroes, Alibaba, SA Innovation Summit. It really opens doors in terms of who you can drop names with as an entrepreneur, because let's be honest, we need to build our credibility and trust in the market. Specifically, at the end of the day, we're looking to grow our business. We're looking to grow that brand awareness. And from African Business Heroes perspective, it was honestly incredible. I know that we met and spoke to some leading government decision makers, leading business decision makers along our journey, and that really did impact our growth. And thanks to ABH, we're also now present in about 30 African countries, primarily in sub-Saharan Africa. And TradeBricks essentially is a platform that connects in the B2B space. And we had, companies from Tanzania, where we don't even do any marketing, reaching out to us, wanting to get onto our platform to start trading with South Africa. And that's the type of credibility that you can get from being associated with African business heroes. And it also helps you to streamline your own brand marketing and message into the market, because as entrepreneurs, you need to get your message across as soon as possible. Specifically, I'm sure we've all been working on our elevator pitches. And with the African business heroes, they really shape the way that you can communicate your own brand message, specifically with decision makers that are not just going to be having a video call with you and then dropping off. No, they're going to be working with you past the long haul. So making sure that that decision maker knows how they can help you, where they can open a door, and what your business does is so important. And something that was really pivotal for us is, at the time, TradeBricks was reaching one of its peaks in terms of user capacity, and we were really struggling to get users as we were expanding into Africa. And like I mentioned, just being associated with African business heroes, I think we grew our numbers to about 5,000 additional users purely active on the TradeBricks platform. And I think that is a huge shout out to the community that surrounds itself with African business heroes. Because when you are associated with the competition itself, you're not just having judges or other entrepreneurs looking at this program from an apex perspective, but you're having ministers, you're having presidents, you're having international credible entrepreneurs like Jack Ma, who are actively knowing about your company through the programs such as African Business Heroes. And I think, by being able to articulate really quickly to these decision makers in your 10 seconds that you get to go through the program, share your message, articulate it, was absolutely incredible for us, because one of the workshops that we actually went through was with a huge marketing company who brands entrepreneurs like us sitting on the call on how to get your point and sell and always be selling. And I think that was absolutely incredible. And I'll tell you a quick story, is when we got into the top 20, there was a huge media blitz all across Africa. I think there was about 100 publications that announced the top 20, and in languages that I couldn't even speak, in French, in Arabic, in Asian, Chinese, Hindi. And the real power of the network is that credibility that it drives for you. So from my own perspective, it really has added so much to the TradeBricks network in terms of what we can do in the markets and how we do it going forward. And I'd say, if you are looking at really taking this competition seriously and putting in the time and putting in the effort, you will see the rewards. And like the entrepreneurs you've heard in the video, talk about that brand awareness, talk about the community that you gain, not just for the duration of the period, but also calling up an entrepreneur who's walked your journey before, who's had your problem before, who you can call up and, let's say, You're struggling with cash flow. There's an entrepreneur who's been there, done that, already solved for that problem. You can call them up on their cell phone, WhatsApp them at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and you'll get a response from this community. And even if you're walking along the fundraising journey and you're looking to raise funds, there's other entrepreneurs that you're rubbing shoulders with that raise $20 million, $40 million, hundreds of millions of dollars. So you really are gaining a network. You're gaining if I can call it a blueprint to entrepreneurship by interacting and engaging with people who are of like-minded like yourself, who are also on the path to growing an African narrative story, and how we can really promote ourselves as African entrepreneurs. And I think the African Business Heroes, the competition itself really gives you that playing field to say, we are African businesses and we are here to compete with Asia. We are here to compete with America. We are here to compete with the rest of the developed world. And our innovation is credible, it's being seen. And I think that is the true power of where TradeBricks, and from myself as an entrepreneur, really experienced the power of the competition. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Shah, for those valuable insights. So that was the hero's perspective of the application journey. So the next person we're going to hear from is one of our ABH judges, and a few pointers and tips from Fathima. Thank you so much, Fathima. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I think first of all, I must say congratulations for actually just joining this. It means you're very serious about yourself, about your business. So just give yourself a round of applause for actually making the time. I know busy, in your businesses. So you've made the time. That means you know where you want to go, and there's no better place to be in your entrepreneurship journey than with the ABH team. Buntu, thank you to you and your team for inviting me to share some insights. I've been involved in this competition going 3 years now, and hopefully the nuggets of information I will share with you will be very helpful. I just quickly want to take a minute to talk about the video that hopefully most of you saw at the beginning of the session. And some of the things that it'll do for you personally as well as for your businesses. It mentioned that your profile will grow tremendously, and that is so true. Just given the length and breadth of who ABH is and who is behind ABH, your profile will grow tremendously. Your exposure for your business as well, as Shah said, the networking is amazing. So it's no better place to be. And I've just reiterate that. It mentioned that the ABH family, together with SA Innovation Summit, it's a PR and a networking machine. You can get no better than this. So make use of this, because I hope that all of you will continue to the next stage of submitting your business case. Even if you don't move on to the next round, your first step in any case is going to get you some great networking. So make use of that. The growth that you and your company will experience is again so tremendous, and I think Shah has reiterated that as well from what he has seen being involved with the competition. So I think also for me as a judge, what I saw was the tremendous and amazing talent that we have in Africa. So hats off to all of you and to all those who had previously entered. The talent that we have is when I looked and I reviewed some of the business cases, it's amazing the ideas that you all have, the businesses that you have. So please continue with that. Your talent, it's time, like Shah said, we can compete with the rest of the world. We're on the same levels, if not better. So I proudly say that as an African, we can certainly show the world what we have to offer. And for me as well, I think all of you started your entrepreneurship journey with a dream, right? There was something that sparked in your mind. There was something that happened in your life that made you decide to go on this entrepreneurship journey. Some of you have followed businesses out of things that have come out of your life. So please continue with that. What for me is very important to see in your business case, in your application. So us as judges go through your applications with a fine-tooth comb. So I'll share with you some of the things that I personally look for, and also from having sat with other judges, what they also holistically look for in your application. So obviously you're going to start off with the overview, right? Make sure, and I think Shah mentioned it as well, just in a helicopter view or your elevator pitch, right? Be very succinct in your overview, because the rest of the details are going to come in your business case. Your overview doesn't need to be 2 pages, 3 pages. Just make sure that in an elevator pitch, when I read it, that I know what your business is about, where you currently are, what your challenges are, what your solutions are going to be. And then it follows with items that you need to share with us about your business. What it should do in your business overview, it's actually a mirror to yourself, if I could put it that way, is that when you look at it, be critical about your business case, that even when you finish doing it, read it as if you're a judge, or as if you are Buntu from SA Innovation Summit, or if you're somebody from ABH reading this. Be critical about it and the information that you put there. Be very succinct in your language, right? That it makes it easy for the other person reading it to understand what you are trying to articulate. Don't make it difficult for the judges to read it over and over again and still don't understand what you're trying to say. So if I could even encourage you, if you have somebody, after you've done your business case, get somebody else to read it, to be critical and say, okay, well, I think you should change this, use this language, change the grammar here. It's the little things that count. Okay, so it's the big and the small things, but attention to detail is what we are going to look for. Okay. One of the biggest things that we will look at is your finances, or the section on your finances. Now, not all of you may have a finance degree. Some of you may have a marketing degree, a communication degree, or something else, right? So why I say finance is very critical is that all judges will look at this over and over again. And should you make it through to the next rounds, we will crit you on that. We will ask you questions on that. So make sure that your CFO or your finance manager gives you all of the information. We will look at information of previous years. We will look at your projections for the future. We will look at your profits and your losses. So your finances will be heavily interrogated, more especially just because of the prize money that you will be allocated. The team needs to know that should you become that final winner or in the top 10 or the top 3, that you will know what you are going to do with that prize money, right? So finances is going to be pretty important. Sit with your financial manager and interrogate them so that should you go into the next rounds, that when you are then being interrogated, you have that information, or you have that level of information to respond accurately. So please spend a lot of time on your finances. Make sure there's no gaps. Even maybe use your CFO to question you on the balance sheets that you share with us, in order to prepare you in the event you start moving to the next round. I cannot overly emphasize how important financials are. Now, obviously, I come from a marketing and communication background. So when I look at your applications, I want to see that you know how to communicate your product or your service, that you know how to market your product and your service. And again, this may not be the field that you studied in. So I would encourage you to make use of your network or reach out to people in marketing, communications, finances, etc., to learn of how things should be done. So when I look at marketing, I want to see what platforms you use for marketing. I want to see how you've told your community, your city, your country about your product or services. I want to see how cleverly you've marketed your product. And I also want to see your future plans of how you will market. People always tend to think marketing and communications come last, but you will find that it's a very critical part of your business. Okay, it also shows me that you understand your audience. Your target audience as well, we will see how well you know your target audience, right? The age, the gender, what are their buying options, how do they engage on platforms, and dependent on your target audience, you need to show us that you've done research. So research is going to be very critical for us as judges, that we see that you've done research into your target audience, that your research has told you the buying patterns, or what are the challenges in the marketplace and how your company or service will overcome that challenge. Also talking about challenges, it's very important for us to see and for you to be very honest about your challenges that you experience with the product or service that you are offering. And also more importantly, that you have these challenges, but you also know how to overcome the challenges with solutions, okay? That you have identified the gaps in your business, and then you show us how you will plug those gaps, how you will close those gaps. So research is going to be critical. Also, we want to see why you chose to go into a specific business. Let's say you decided to go into an energy business, for example. Why did you choose to go in that business? What impact it's going to have on the community around you, in the city that you operate in the country that you operate in. I want to see, you will tell us, maybe you only operate in one city or 5 cities in your country, or you operate across your entire country. I also would like to see what are your expansion plans, if you have any. Okay, that's going to be pretty important. But for me, I want to see the impact it has, because there could be many, let's say, energy businesses. I want you to identify I want to see that, why is your business so special? What's your USP? What's your unique selling point? Show us as judges why we should take a second look at it, why perhaps you should go into the next round, what difference is it making? Also, when you are doing your business case, it's important, there's an opportunity for you to do a video. The video helps in that 2 or 3 minutes that you give us that video, round up your entire business case in that video. So make clever use of your video. It helps to see, again, when you are showing the impact you've had on your communities. Use somebody who has used your services, for example, as a testimonial in your video. It's very helpful to see that instead of you talking, or your staff, for example, the impact you've had on somebody's life, or a family's life, or a community's life, or the country's life, because that's, for me, is what should be making you wake up every morning to continue to do the things that you're doing, because the entrepreneurship journey is not an easy one, right? So I want to know what makes you, or what motivates you to wake up every morning. Testimonials are going to be super important for people who've engaged with you and your business and your staff. So try and get many testimonials as possible. Like I said, we want to see what your future plans are, that you have a concrete plan. Should you go into the next rounds, that you know what you want to do for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. We want to see that plan, okay? Just coming back to financials, we want to see your profit margins. Be honest. If you haven't made a profit in the first 2 years, that's okay. right? Because you're a startup, right? You're learning, you are going through the trials and errors and the challenges and the issues. It's okay. But we want to see from your projections that at some stage you're going to make the profit, and that when you start making a profit, what are you going to do with that profit? Okay. Also, we want to see, I know there's a question about if you are the ultimate winner, right? What you're going to do with that money. Have a very serious plan about what you're going to do with that money. And I think my time's up. And like I said, just rounding up, have someone review your work. Let them be critical about your work. Be your own critic, right? And just prepare yourselves. And like I said, just congratulations again for just being here and taking that first step. Thanks, Buntu and team.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I'm sure these tips and the motivation overall has been extremely valuable to our future Africa's business heroes. So before diving into the application form, we have a poll posted in the chat with 3 questions that we would love to hear from you. So if you can just complete that for us. The first one is where you're joining us from, how far you are with the application, and then what you hope to gain from the session. So I'll just give it a minute or two for everybody to submit their answers. And while you're busy with that, I would just like to encourage you all, while we're going through the sessions, please post your questions and comments in the chat as well, for us to get to that during the Q&A session at the end of today's workshop. So I see from the polls, most are joining from South Africa and East Africa, the majority. 78% of you already started with your application, which is great. 9% is a bit confused. We will sort that out during today's session. And I must say it's an overall mix for what you guys are hoping to gain, whether it's motivation to apply, clarity on the form, or clarity on the qualifying criteria. So that's great to see. Thank you so much. While you're busy responding, we will continue with the session. So I would like to hand over to Buntu to please take us through the application form. Thanks, Buntu.
Thank you very much, Danielle, and thanks as well, Shar. Great to have you and your continued incredible work. Fatima, those were wonderful insights, and would love to go deeper on those in the next 30 minutes as well with you. So thank you again for being here and your time. And of course, for all of you that have already started, for those that are still to start, I hope that this session is what's going to be helping you to take that next step. And so it's really great to have you. I'm really hoping now to ensure that by the time you leave here, you understand how the application form more or less looks like, what are the various steps, and what is it that has taken entrepreneurs like Shar all the way to the end in terms of their experience in reflecting on that, as well as what stands out for judges like Fathima, whom you appreciate having online. And so what that will mean will really be me taking you piece by piece on each of the sections or each of the sections of the application, and then in each of them sort of reflecting what is the best way to respond to this. And so please do feel free as we go through this process. Ideas, questions might come up, and so on. And you can put those into the chat, and we will have a Q&A section towards the end where you can then sort of discuss and begin the discussion. So please do know that this is meant to be engaging and open, and for us to really be able to understand and chat. So thanks so much for the poll. I'll be closing that now. I see that we have a good understanding of who's in the room. And as I mentioned here, is that we will be going over the application. Now, what you can see here is that the application is made up of 7 parts. Each of them build a storyline. And each of them have keys to unlock, as I call it, the heart to the judges. I mean, the key, the doors to the judges' hearts and their minds, where it starts off with an eligibility check to ensure your revenue, you're registered, and that's an African business based in Africa by African co-founders. So always be honest here and also throughout the application. It's part of the core values being looked for. And then following that is really to get an understanding of how credible, authentic, and reliable can someone give a reference of you, which is a section where you need to prepare for a person to giving a reference. We'll go into that as well. And then there's the founder profile to understand you as an entrepreneur. And then your business profile, where it goes into the details and unpack the various pieces that Fathima was talking about that build up your business into one that is suitable for ABH. And these things include being innovative, impact-driven, and really being a game changer. So we'll talk about how to be clear, we'll talk about how to build out a storyline, and so on. And then so that's really about your business profile as an overview, and then we go into various pieces of your business deep dive. In here, we unpack each of those areas, speaking to your finances, speaking to your market, speaking to your competitive analysis, and I'm looking forward here to getting reflections from Shah and Fathima. And then lastly, is giving us a real sense of your customer and yourself via a video introduction. And you'll notice towards the end that you then get to confirm if you filled everything in. This, when you're on the application form, is sort of a navigation bar that you see in front of you now, so you can use that to navigate back and forth. That's the whole point. And at the end, you can see what you've completed, what you'd need to go back to, how you can review and so on before submitting on the 12th, before the 12th of May. So you will hear that date come up quite a lot. It's a very important one because and you'll see today that it is a intense and in-depth application that helps you to unpack your business, but also the judges to better understand your business. And that takes some time. So you do want to be aware of that time. And so jumping forward here is really starting off the eligibility. And this is an overview. The whole point is that ABH is looking to find and support African businesses. Great work on the continent and tackling some of the most pressing and transformative challenges that we have with great potential. So in your communities with potential across the continent. And this is really based on the tenets of being inclusive. So the eligibility criteria is open and it's inclusive. There's no industry, it's industry agnostic. There's no age limits, and there's applications in English and in French and to all African countries. However, there is a minimum requirement that is suitable and or almost enabling for you to go the furthest in the program. So that will, if you meet these requirements, you will be able to pass the eligibility criteria. That is your business being registered, you're operating and headquartered in an African country and founded by an African co-founder or founder or of African descent, parents or grandparents being Africans. And lastly, with having a 3-year revenue track record, which need not be consecutive, but it should show that you have robust revenue for 3 years at least. And if you then meet these criteria, you are well on your way to being an African business hero. But on that journey, there will be some things that you want to take into account. And please allow us to repeat ourselves, which is pacing yourself. You know, the application allows you to not do it at the same time. Take your time, plan it, start, stop, review. Fathima emphasized on this. And also feel free to collaborate with your team, with your mentors, with your advisors. There is a downloadable version. And hopefully that makes it easier to work on. And then there's the asterisk box that you want to watch out for, because that means you cannot submit unless you have filled in that question. So watch out for that, ensure that you work on those quite diligently. But if you get stuck at any point in time, there will be cues to support you along the way. There's tip buttons, there's examples buttons to inspire you, show you how successful entrepreneurs in the past, such as Shar, have approached these questions and thought about it. And so if you need it, please use them. There's a live chat as well that you can use. And you can also email us at info@africabusinessheroes.org. There's also a WhatsApp line, which I'll be sharing later. Remember to plan your time, work on it on an ongoing basis. May feel far away, but as they say, objects in the mirror do look closer than they appear, or are closer than they may appear. So May might actually just be tomorrow. In that sense, please do note that there is a component where you need to be working ahead. And this is something where you start off in the beginning. It's required in the beginning, your reference, but it might take a little bit of time, and you're working on your other application components. You're then waiting for this feedback, which is the reference note. This is where you choose someone who can speak about you on your behalf for the application. And think about someone who would be the best representation if you were not in the room. This could be an advisor, a mentor, a partner, business partner, or a colleague, but not someone who's family. And of course, not yourself, giving a reference about yourself. So that will lead to disqualification. But think about this, reach out to them, give them some time, give them context, and give them a heads up, and then go back to working on your application. And then that will allow you to ensure that you hear back from them in a professional, smooth, and understandable time. Following the reference, so if you've now worked on this first area, which is the eligibility, you've made it, and now you go into the reference, we're going to want to start understanding about you. This is to give a good sense to the judges about who is the entrepreneur that is working on this business. And what I've always found, Fathima, if you can come in and elaborate slightly on this for me. I think I related with you deeply when you said you're always inspired to meet the entrepreneurs that have taken on the responsibility to build the continent, build their businesses, and solve solutions being faced in their community. And these are the people that we hope to find and shine even further. How would you describe the characteristics, the inspiring aspects of the ideal ABH candidate?
I think certainly someone who has a can-do attitude, somebody who has a dream that no matter what challenges you face, that you will keep going. Somebody who shows leadership skills, somebody who shows, when I look at the application, that I can see that your concern goes beyond yourself. You're not just there, you there is you've identified a gap, you found a solution, that your business goes beyond being a business making a profit, that the humanity in yourself comes out when I'm reading your application, when I'm watching your video, that you are so desperately wanting to make an impact to other people's lives, to people who are less fortunate. Yes, we all want to make money, right? But how do you use that money to help others? Because when your business starts growing, you're already impacting lives of the people you're working with. You're creating jobs, right? For me, it's that emotive. I just want to feel that emotion of your business just went beyond you making a profit, and that makes you happy, that you are making a difference to the lives of the people who work for you. Also, Bunta, I want to say that in the application, we also want to see that you continuously empower your staff, your employees, that you have a training plan for them, because education is continuous. It must not stop. And the same for yourself as a leader. Sometimes you get so busy in the the running of the business that you forget about yourself. So education is key. For me, passing on knowledge is key. But for me, the ideal person would be, I want to see, literally, I want to see your heart in your application. And that probably sounds crazy, but it should come out in what your business, what gap you identified, what was the solution, what was the impact. And you know, when you talk about the testimonial that somebody has to write about you, find that person down the road whose life you impacted in such a way that that family has grown, that family is your ambassador, right? And that's all you need. You don't need some fancy person to say, hey, look what this business has done for me. It could be that ordinary man on the street whose life you have changed. I just want to see that you're a continuous leader, that you give back, that you know how to look after people, but also yourself.
Love that. Thanks so much, Fatima. It sounds crazy to pour your heart out into the application form, but it's certainly been done. And visionary, impact-orientated leaders is certainly what is being looked for. And so really, I think for me, and reflecting on what you're saying, Fatima, someone who brings all of their vision and passion and how they're practically doing that into a tangible storyline. And really often find that, you know, the business heroes, the true capitalists, think beyond just the capitalism and making the money. That's a tool for them to achieve their ultimate ends. And that's very common in Africa, considering all our experiences and the context that we work and live and grow up in. And so many of you truly African business heroes, just by virtue of being here and running your business the way you are. And we just want to encourage you to put your best foot forward. One of the previous African business heroes, Mr. Opara, who was the co-founder of Drugstop, 2019 Top 10 finalist, said that 3 things to get you to the end is pace yourself, know your why, and just go for it. Because you can, and you are the hero that we are looking for. And so now, as you've gone past these first 3 steps, you've gone through the eligibility, you're working on your reference, and you are now working on your founder profile. You're pouring your heart out, you know, and you're doing this in a way that is concise. You're doing this in a way that shares a personal story. So there's questions such as what motivated you to become an entrepreneur? There's questions that try to understand what is it that, what parts of you show your leadership characteristics, your background in terms of impacting your community and things that you've done in your community. And so this is really the part where you let your personality shine through. And Shar, always love the way you express and tell your story, the way you show up in spaces, and would love to pick your brain on captivating the judge's mind in something that, as some founders may not always feel comfortable doing, which is, letting their personality shine. How do you approach this, and what tips would you have for someone thinking about their entrepreneurial journey and what motivated them to be an entrepreneur, describing their failure, and also boasting about their achievements?
But I think that's absolutely incredible. Is when you talk about shining through the application itself is the entrepreneur's first point of contact for the judges to really see and connect with you, because to the entrepreneurs on the call, the judges themselves are people just like us, and I think Ubuntu mentioned this quite in detail in terms of they have emotions and they're thinking with their minds. And although there's a rational side, there's also an emotional side. And as an entrepreneur, we gear to take advantage and leverage tools and functionalities that we can use to our advantage. And one of the main talking points that I really focused on was crafting and honing my story. I spent a lot of time, even before I put it down on application, really communicating this with as many people as I could. And the story that came across, and I'll give you a quick snippet, is that after I graduated college, I had found huge plans of joining my family's business to be an entrepreneur. But when the business closed down, and that was unfortunately due to unforeseen circumstances out of their hands, I had no options to earn an income. Myself, as a person, I know I'm unemployable, and to many people on the call, the entrepreneurs, we know we are unemployable. We can't take cues from other people. We have to do it ourselves. And determined to make it as an entrepreneur and provide for my family and to contribute to a family of 7. African families are large. And I had to really, really be frugal and see where I can cut costs. So I stopped paying for my apartment. I moved in with my cousin, slept on his couch, and saved that extra money to put back into my business. I didn't even have a car. So we didn't even have Wi-Fi in that apartment with my cousin. So we had to walk to nearby coffee shops, use their Wi-Fi to build my business. And fast forward 3 years, I actually successfully managed to build my business. And I communicated that really with the judges to resonate with me as an entrepreneur, me as a person, to the judges, and communicate that story. And, also giving you some context into where my background comes from. My family initially in India got sent to South Africa as indentured laborers 180 years ago. And they came from nothing. They came only with the determination to earn an extra bit of cash, cutting sugarcane in South Africa. And that was the story that really drove me to be an entrepreneur, to bring dignity back to people like me, to small businesses like me, who have never been handed the long end of the stick. And that's precisely what I chose to focus on. And if you can make your story relatable to the judges, to really impact the judges, you can bring dignity and show them that you are making an impact for people like yourself and for people within your community.
Thanks so much, Shar, for digging deep down on that and sharing how one can be relatable and really connect to the human on the other side of the screen that is judging. I think aspects that came through for me was about being here, being relevant, and being authentic on how you are inspired, because when you tell how you are inspired, you will inevitably inspire who you're telling. So thanks so much for those thoughts. I love that this actually forms a foundation for the rest of the application, because now the judge has a sense of who you are. And then the next sections are starting to understand about how are you applying yourself in your business. So in your business profile, one of the questions is really to encapsulate a elevator pitch sort of approach to everything that your business is. And I think here Fatima unpacked it, that it should be clear, it should be concise, and it should start connecting as well to who you are as a founder, and give the judges a first good impression of the overview of your business. And it doesn't have to have everything, but it should have the things that you believe are going to show the key aspects of what the business is. Like, what is it that you sell, product and service? Why is it different? What's the USP on it? Is the problem connected to why you start as an entrepreneur? And how are the finances of that going? How has the traction been going? And in terms of jobs being created, in terms of revenue being earned, etc. So really sticking to short sentences that encapsulate the core aspects of the business, and getting that across in less than 100 words. And so it's like a trailer really for the rest of the application, because then what we're able to start going through is the deep dive of that business, and taking those aspects one by one. You could even in your elevator pitch take these deep dive sections and see which of them in your business resonates the most, and then summarize those into your elevator pitch, such that they come across quite strongly. And here I'd like to start picking the brains as well of Shtar and Fatima around the fundamental question as to why your business exists, which is talking about the problem that you are tackling, as well as talking about how you are tackling that problem. So I think that from a problem perspective, Sean, you'll let me know if you agree with me here. I think if the judge is not convinced that this problem is real, if the judge is not moved by this problem, if the judge does not feel that this problem drives you based on what they understand in your founder's profile, and if it's not clear in terms of how this customer and consumer is actually paid, and the cost to them that you feel, that you can translate, you understand the cost to your customer, and you can translate this to the judge, then they're not going to, it's not really going to resonate with them and be convinced about this problem. And then let me know as well how you would tackle and give pointers to, once you've established a compelling problem, how do you explain that actually I am tackling this problem effectively, and our approach has a lot of opportunity.
That's brilliant, Buntu. And from my side, and sorry, Fatima, I think I'll just go first because it's top of mind. And essentially with TradeBricks, again, we first really understood what the judges were looking for in terms of facts, figures, and knowing your numbers, because something that's preached at African Business Heroes is really knowing your numbers. If you're going to commit to something in your brand story, and I'll tell you a little bit about how TradeBricks went at the time and how we communicated our message. And essentially, we mentioned TradeBricks, I'll just read it exactly the way that I said to the judges, is that we were building a digital operating system for traditional business-to-business retail with last-mile distribution for 100 million small retailers in an informal $700 billion cash-first market, backed by a study with PwC. So again, I'm bringing in figures and facts that directly relate to my problem, and then I'm also bringing credibility of where I got my numbers from. And when it went down to the problems that we were actually solving on the granular level, we really tried to focus on captivating the features of TradeBricks in a very easy to use manner that sounds exciting. And at the time, digital transformation was huge in Africa. And we saw, and we literally stalked the judges to see what type of content they were engaging with on LinkedIn and online. And digital transformation was top of mind. So we really focused our presentation on communicating our problem as we addressing digital transformation in an informal traditional sector that has been underserved. And specifically, when you look at small retailers who purchase products from manufacturers and wholesalers, they don't have access to cash. They have huge cash flow issues, and that's where TradeBricks comes in to solve that issues by providing them with financing and tools to get products on time. So we really spend time unpacking our product in an easy to use manner, who we are communicating, who we are solving a problem for, and how big the potential market could be and why your company is best placed. But apart from that, Butu, I think you mentioned something incredible, is bringing credibility to what you are saying and who are you working with in the market. And we were working with, at the time, the Inyama Trust, which is informally known as the Zulu Kingdom in South Africa, and KEPSA in Kenya, where we were digitizing trade between 4 million small retailers in Africa's most vulnerable rural communities. And we brought data, we brought facts, and we communicated our problem extremely simple, to the point, and what the judges were looking for. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Shar. It's clear how those are connected. 4 million, the figures, 4 million traders, and then an operating system that connects them. So connecting the problem and the solution, making sure that's clear when you answer your solution is very important. And I love the advanced tips as well. Go out and stalk the judges, research on ABH, look at the videos, see what questions are asked in the pitching competitions. Some of the advanced tips I'll take from that as well. Shah, thanks so much. So you guys are in for a treat today, getting advanced tips as well. And I do want to appreciate you being here again, Fathima, and I think this really being the final slide, because I do understand that other commitments do call for your time now at 5 o'clock. So once we've established, chime in and say goodbye and maybe share any last pointers before you head out would be great, because the next deep dive section is the market, which, if as a judge you are convinced that the problem exists and this business is potentially solving this problem very well, now you'd want to understand, how big is this problem? How big can this business get? And of course, with the experience and expertise you have, as judges do, they understand the vastness of various industries and the potential on the continent. So here, the entrepreneur needs to be unpacking really succinct to help you as a judge understand the customer, what's unique about that customer, what's happening in that market, such that you become convinced that, wow, this is a huge opportunity. So how do you go about looking at being and appreciating whether the entrepreneur understands their market?
Got it. And I just want to say, so for me, this is the heart of the application. When you first started off, you said if the judge is reading this section and is not convinced that, of the problem and the solution, then the judge kind of, just tunes out of this, because if I'm not convinced that this problem is going to solve something, etc., that's why for me, I'm saying this is the heart of your application. Put your heart, mind, and soul and everything into it. And also to Shah's point, where he was, he was talking, it was literally felt like an elevator pitch to me, and I was already sold. because he spoke about something, he threw in some facts and figures, because that's what's going to keep my attention, right? So to this being the heart of your application, obviously, yes, we want to know what was the problem, what was the solution. And I spoke about it earlier in my introduction about the research, right, into your audience, and exactly to the slide on the page. If you do not do your research, then I'm not convinced you actually identified the problem, because you may have identified a problem. You need to validate that by doing some research, and then your research is going to tell you how you can potentially solve the problem. So research is going to be critical. And I know, research can be something that's quite expensive, but if you're trying to solve something that's that you want to solve something in your communities, just go out to the community. However you may have done research for the problem that you want to try and solve, whether it's word of mouth, going out and talking to people, even talking to your family and friends, right? That's still research. But that's what we want to see, that you understand who your audience is. If you do not understand your audience, then nothing's going to work from there, because everything that you do from there, whether it's your marketing plan, whether it's your strategy, whether it's your solutions, it's all going to be off base if you do not understand, this is my audience, this is where they consume media, this is their thoughts and feelings about things, these are the cultural barriers I need to take into place, or these are the cultural nuances I need to take into account. Also, very important, if you're operating, let's say, in 2 or 3 different countries, right? For example, it's not a one size fits all. I want to know that you know about the culture in country A, country B, country C, because it's not a one size fits all. The worst thing you can do is aggravate your customer or your audience because you think you know what they want, you think you know how they feel, you think you know what the solution should be, right? Don't make assumptions. Let research speak to it, and you already then have a good starting point. So you need research. Even when you have a fantastic business, you're making lots of profit, research is something continuous. Do not take your audience for granted. Keep engaging with them, because as we know, things do change over time. What was relevant yesterday is not relevant today, right? If you just take social media, for example, something that was posted on social media 10 minutes ago is no longer relevant right now, right? So also a tip from social media, if I could also then give a tip. As a company, if you're not engaged in social media, your audience can take over your brand and your organization and your narrative. So the tip here is to make sure you are 10 steps ahead of that, right? That you're engaging, that you are communicating, and that you're always giving your audience what they need to know. You're always making them feel special. It's that personalized effect that people want. I don't want to know that I was a group of 100 and you sent that email to me, right? I want to know I was special enough. And look, we know, like sometimes bulk mails go out, right? But get to the point in your business where it's personalized to Buntu, where it's personalized to Fatima, where Shah feels like he was just being spoken to personally. I cannot overemphasize that. And once you do that, you create customer loyalty, brand loyalty, that stickiness that we talk about in marketing. Because even if you tend to do something wrong with a loyal customer, they will forgive you. Okay, so I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Very, very helpful. And thanks again for your time. Looking forward to keeping in touch soon. And there you have it. Take care. Thanks, Fatima.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. And there you have it. What I'm hearing is as a judge is looking to understand whether this entrepreneur has a great relationship with their customers. They understand who that customer is, how that customer behaves, and therefore it means and where that customer is. And this comes across in detailed figures and numbers, words such as a rate, ratios, X percentage of, etc. These, or however thousand, however million, by based on this source, based on the bank, or based on the African Union, or based on on a survey that you did to 200 of your customers. But these things should be coming across, because then that will convince them that this entrepreneur is actually has a great market, and they know that they have an opportunity that they can capture and convert into business. So getting down, that's why the question goes all the way to getting down to how many people do you estimate your product and service could benefit? Because then that starts to show that you truly understand the dynamics of your market and who exactly is the persona, and that you have a relationship with that customer. Following that is further unpacking. Now that you understand who it is, how big it is, the judge wants to know, can you actually get to that market? And are you able to capture that market, convert it into business in a sustainable way? And I think here things come across, Shah's promotions, how do you price, what is your marketing strategy, what's the user experience, what's the part that convinces people to actually hand over their money and say, thank you, you've solved the key problem for me in a meaningful way. How do you think about marketing strategies and route to market in answering this question?
Buntu, I think that's such an incredible point, because each business and the way that they get to their markets is very unique. And in our case, we knew that there were about 5 other companies playing in our space. We knew exactly who they were. We knew exactly what route to markets that they were taking. And we did our research and backed that up by facts, and really understanding the way that they were going to approach the route to market. And the way that we approached it was extremely unique in terms of how do we get to our end user who was sitting in rural, underserved communities with no access to social media, maybe access to a mobile smartphone, but no access to understanding trade routes products. And the way that we had to think about it was, there is a person on the other side, our end user, who is a small shop, is a small manufacturer, is a Gobi manufacturing some beads. How do we get to her? And the main goal that we focused on our route to market was partnerships. And that was with people who've already captured our audience. We wanted to partner with those people who've already reached those customers, who already had our customer base. All we had to do was win that partnership over and provide a lot of value early on. Because as an entrepreneur, it's sometimes extremely hard to convince the other side, no matter how good of a salesperson you are, of the value that you bring to the table. And we looked at it from a point and perspective that the proof is in the pudding. And if you can provide value for your customer in an extremely easy to use, fast, better, cheaper than anyone else, more than your competitors can, you will win that market over. And that's exactly how we looked at capturing our market and using unique strategies that our competitors weren't using. Because the generic terms and the judges on the other side are going to see this. If you just say, I'm using social media, specific, how are you using social media to capture that audience and captivate the mind of that user? What's going to make you stand out from thousands of other applicants that are coming into African Business Heroes, that are coming to your market share? And that's exactly how we looked at it, that everyone else wanted to eat our market. How are we going to eat it faster? But at the same time, we wanted to know that we are solving a problem that would get people talking, that will get people excited, that will really bring about what we call digital transformation. And we made it so that the way that we communicated our message was tailored to the end user. No fancy terms, no even a digital operating system. It was purely, here's a platform that you can use to make money. Here's a platform that you can use to get financing for your business and to create jobs. I think if we begin the entrepreneurs on the call, look at captivating the judges with your unique strategies of how you're going to get value across to your customer and how are they actually going to pay you and why are they going to pay you as opposed to a competitor who's knocking on the same door.
I love that, Shah. What I'm hearing is that you understood your customers so well that you could put yourself in their position. And once you're able to do that, you're able to think about how would the best way for them to actually know about and get benefit from your business be, and then essentially present that. And I think that goes back strongly to what Fathima was saying about understanding your customer deeply. You know, if they are a truck driver, you're probably not going to be just only, you know, using social media, but like you were saying, Shar, an example there might be you might be on using WhatsApp as, you know, as a social media strategy, because when they're on their breaks, they're on WhatsApp and communicating with their families and friends because they're always on the road, and therefore through a WhatsApp strategy, you're able to actually, you know, get in touch with them. And that shows you understand your truck driver's unique circumstances and journey. And then you give stats about, you know, what percent, how much percentage of time do they actually spend on that? Maybe you speak to a couple of them, etc., and get those aspects across. A keyword you used as well was unique. Not only does understanding your customer make you unique in how you're converting them, but also you got to understand your competitors and therefore set your answers accordingly to be different, that you show that you do understand your competitors. What is your competitors? How many of them are there? How are they approaching their markets? How are they serving or not serving the needs of your customers that you've mentioned? And so this could, you know, be things such as, you know, talking about your unique selling proposition is that unlike your competitors who are accessing, you know, who are spending X amount of millions of dollars in billboard marketing in order to access drivers, we are coming in at 10% to access through WhatsApp marketing, and this is a friendly environment where, you know, the language is even tuned to them understanding the needs and the service providing for those needs. And so it starts to show that, wow, you've really come across with a unique way. And like Shah had mentioned, they had identified a source of leverage with partners who have captured markets that are speaking to the same people that they're speaking to, and therefore have shared values. And I think that, you know, that comes across as understanding your customer well as understanding the competitive landscape very well, and how therefore you are filling that gap, and that there's also a market in that gap. And Shar, it always comes down to the money at some point. How sustainable is the business? How does one, you know, when we think of business models, and like you said, it's so unique to the circumstances of how that entrepreneur is building customers, building relationships, building channels, etc., to get this across to the judges in a way that is compelling, that is understandable, and shows that even though it might, you know, a lot of income sources, the one that connects to the rest of the storyline, connects to the customer, connects to why you started the business, comes across. How do you unpack and think about, you know, laying down how the business makes money?
You know, Bunja, I think this is probably one of the most important points as any entrepreneur, how we viewed communicating our cash flow model, because as an entrepreneur, specifically when you're about 5 years and under, cash flow is probably one of the most important factors that you're going to have to continuously reiterate. And, you know, when it comes down to your actual income generation model, in our case, we were business to business, a B2B model. And we did have segments that were B2G, business to government. but we tended not to focus on that on our application because it was only about 15% of our application. And one of the ways that we visualize this for the judges, because entrepreneurs on the call, what you have to understand is that the judges are going to be processing 40,000, 50,000, tens of thousands of applications, and you need to stand out in a very short space of time with a set format. So what we did is we created a visual representation of the streams of income that were coming in. Our largest model was in the B2B space, which we communicated was about 80% of our revenue side, which we highlighted to our judges so they could really see, here's the stream of income, this is where it's coming in, this is how much X was coming in from our partners, let's say 15% from partners, 20% directly, reps on the ground, 30% cold calling. And we really outlined that we knew how to capture and captivate the market share and how it would translate to cash in the bank, money in the bank, and how it would create positive cash flows within your existing organization. And really understanding your price points. So what the judges will do, and in our case, they looked at competitors and saw the price points that our competitors were coming in. And they actually asked us, why are we coming in so much lower than what our competitors were? And one of the main points that we had to communicate was we did this as an early entrant into the market to win market share and gain the competitive edge from a financial pricing model point of view. So really understanding your pricing model, how much money is going to be retained in your business after you paid your expenses is so important because the judges want to see that you're sustainable. And they're looking for the next big unicorn that's going to come out. Because at the end of the day, you have to think about it like an African business hero perspective. Be associated with unicorns. They want to be associated with businesses that are doing huge things. The next Facebook must come out of Africa, the next Alibaba. And that's what they're looking for. So if you can communicate that via your strong financial segment, and don't be intimidated by this, entrepreneurs, because even if you need to get your ducks in a row, you still have time to go sort out your financial stuff, but communicate it in your strong cash cows, that are your strong cash net flow positive balances, communicate that first. And then secondary, you can communicate the rest, but tend to focus on 80% of your time on where your large cash flow is.
Wonderful. I love that, Shah, around the iteration of this process, continuously working on it, and also thinking about it in a way that allows the judges to digest it easily. Have a set format, have a way that clearly defines the different segments of your income streams, and then how that breaks down into key cost drivers, key revenue drivers, whether that's a point of commission or whether that's a point of subscription, etc. And ABH is so kind that they've provided us with an online template such that as the judges are going through thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of applications, it's easier for them to see how yours standing out if the traction and where you are going in terms of your projections is truly game-changing. So you'll take a look here at what I'm sharing on my screen really starts to show 2 areas: your statement, top line, and your expenses, etc. And you can actually add more income streams if none of these are speaking to your business in terms of B2B, B2C, maybe it's B2B2C, or it might be other types of income. That's a significant level. You can then just click the plus button and add. Similarly to your expenses, you want to be adding those in a way that's relatable to your business model, as was described before. And Shah mentioned something really critical when it comes to assumptions, context around your cash flow, pricing model, etc. Because when someone just looks at the numbers, they can look great, but when you can tell a story from the way from the numbers, that is when you can now be bringing more value and understanding around the broader business. So an example is a pricing strategy that comes at a fraction of what the competitors are, because we want to markets and grab market share and therefore be a dominant player with fast growth. Being able to put that kind of context as to why are the numbers growing so fast in the future, then becomes that opportunity at the bottom there where you find a space for you to add any additional context, where you might be able to say, we're looking at 10xing the business because of XYZ strategy, whether that's your pricing or whether that might be because you've just locked in a deal in one of the largest markets in the continent, for example. Even though it's optional, would highly recommend that you leverage that. And don't be too optimistic, of course. The judges have been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt. They know what can go great and what can go wrong. And that means that, in your projections, you want to be, you want to be in line with how the rest of your business has been described already. So if it's not authentic projections, the judges will be able to pick that up almost immediately. And that's really the financial section here, which is very, very fundamental. But then you get an opportunity to share more about where this business is going. What is it that you are trying to do? Again, details, data, as well as compelling and understandable, compelling and understandable plans become important. You've built a story up to this point, and being able to stay in line with that authentically, I think is very important for the judges. And even though you may not see the true potential of your business, let's say you underestimate your future plans. I've seen some judges push through later rounds businesses that had projected 10x lower than what the judge's true potential saw, and then they'd advise that to you, and they choose you because of that. So it's not about really impressing the judges, but putting it in a clear way that's understandable and authentic, and they'll be able to tell what's truly the unicorn inside of you. And Shar, I think the way that you continue to build the storyline of the business, the future, and its trajectory is exemplary, and would love to hear your thoughts on really telling a future growth story. There's also a portion where you need to be convincing as to how you're actually going to be achieving that story. So how do you bring these two things together?
I think, Butu, that's very important, and it definitely comes down to the nature of your business. So if you're a software business and your key metrics that you're looking to achieving is annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, or let's say you're a marketplace business who cares about users, then you really need to tie in, and specifically in TradeBricks' case, we were a B2B marketplace. So we were measuring the amount of users that were coming onto the platform and making a purchase and retaining a recurring purchase on platform. So basically, we set out our growth plan into just focusing on 4 main goals at TradeBricks. 1 was on revenue. 2 was on the amount of users linked up to our platform and how we were going to reach them. 3 were the key markets that we wanted to target and why we wanted to target those markets based on market trends, industry analysis. So for example, the rural market in SADC was growing a lot faster than the rural market in North America, in North Africa. So we really had to show stats on why SADC as opposed to North Africa. And the next main factor that we focused on was on our team. How did we want to grow our team? Because at the end of the day, the judges care about the people behind the business, because those are the people that's going to be making this company work. So we set out to simplify our goals using a method that some of you might know. It was set by Google called OKRs, which are specifically objectives and key results. And I'll give you an example. on the revenue side, let's say your goal is to increase revenue by 200,000% to $20 million annual recurring revenue in the next 3 years. Again, keep it realistic, relate it back to your story and how you're going to get there. These are the steps that I'm going to take to get to revenue. I'm going to increase partners by 200 partners in the next year. I'm going to launch and raise, let's say, Series A funding, $10 million. I'm going to deploy $2 million into my distribution channel, into my sales agents on the ground to get that recurring revenue and beat market share. Then let's say the next one was for us increase users from 65,000 by 8,000% to about 5.2 million users. Again, keep it specific, keep it realistic. So let's say your target, your total addressable market is 10 million users. The judges are going to see through that. So make sure that your facts and figures are extremely in alignment with the market that you're going after, and show how you and your goals will grow in accordance with the market. So you really need to come back, do the research and the growth, and why the markets you want to penetrate are so important and vital to your business. So for us, again, SADC was so important. So again, we have to reiterate that point into how can we capture the markets, how we going to enter mainly South Africa, and how we are going to hire and grow our teams. So we really have to talk about our fundraising, our acquisition of users on marketplaces, how we're going to fend off competitors, how we're going to get a critical mass, how we're going to grow network effects. So we really have to break it down by even the industry. So we were targeting non-FMCG categories. So we really have to highlight that to the judges, because at the end of the day, you're communicating your story of growth, which they will see through your financials. So we tied it up in a loop, packaged it for the users and for the judges to see in a very simple format. And Gutu, that's exactly how the strategies that we used were okay.
Brilliant. That's brilliant thinking in terms of, how do we, as the applicants, put ourselves in the judge's shoes, and therefore here start to connect everything we've spoken about and say how we're going to be transforming the landscape going forward, and doing that in a structured way, which is what came across as a compelling factor for me in what Shah shared. And of course, the judges want to know, why have you applied for ABH? How will ABH change your business? Because the values of ABH are to similarly build ambassadors, celebrate heroes that otherwise probably wouldn't have been celebrated. And so if your business does not understand the values of ABH and does not align what ABH's impact is trying to be in terms of being innovative, impact oriented, and bold, then that won't get across to the judges. If you don't have clarity on how you're going to use these funds as a leverage point, maybe that might be to leverage and access other funds. Maybe that might be to amplify the growth strategy in terms of bringing on, empowering your team and employing more people on such as agents or distribution partners, and therefore be able to bring more impact. Then the judges won't really understand. So and it's beyond the funds as well. Yes, the prize, large key component that's very valuable is the funds, but the ABH value community, the network, marketing, etc., needs to also show that you understand that this will catalyze your business completely into a different stratosphere. And so that will show that you understand what the prize is for. And I know we've shared a lot, myself, Shar, and Fatima, in terms of how to approach these aspects. And you ask yourself, how can I do that in 150 words? How can I do that in 100 words? I just want to assure you and bring you back to what Shah shared, in the beginning on refining, reiterating, and going back to work on these. But once you've then done that and filled in your deep dive, etc., you then come to somewhere where you don't have to keep things to 150 words, but now you start to communicate in a different talent or in a different language in a medium, which is speaking. And you don't have to be the one that speaks as much here. You can now let your customer, let your impact speak for you. So towards here, it's already great to start planning for this, to think about who would be the customer that you would want to be an ambassador for how you've changed their lives, impacted their business, and created more opportunity for them, and let them authentically tell that story. So try not to script it and let it come across too scripted. Really trust that your customer will tell and bring across the great work that you're doing. As long as it's in 90 seconds or a minute and a half or less, and also in landscape format, similarly to how Shar and I are coming across now on the cameras, and then being recorded language that you're applying for. So there's a French application form, then you should be uploading it and applying it in that language. But doesn't mean that ABH doesn't understand that you serving customers with a diverse backgrounds of languages. And so if that's more natural and authentic for your customer, then allow them to use that language totally fine, as long as you put some subtitles in either English or French, or you translate it, that testimonial verbally as an overlay. And try not to animations on it. Try to have it as relatable and real as possible. So, and we see the expressions on your face, introducing yourself, and the customer sharing their story. That's a part that really I hope you will be able to leverage. And as we come to the end now of our session today, you would have submitted there. You've gone through everything, you've submitted. I also want to appreciate those that are staying on a little bit longer. We were scheduled for 5:30 UST +2, but we'll go just for 10 more minutes, take a bit more questions so that we make sure that everyone leaves here with some clarity. We're now coming to the end to show that, and you would have been at the end as well. Once you've now uploaded and submitted your video, you double checked everything, and now it is 11th of May, 2023. You press the button and you put your hands behind your head, and it's off to the races. Now what's going to be happening is round one selection, tens of thousands of applications, hundreds to thousands of judges are going to be reviewing these. Each of them will be reviewing it, so 3 judges will look at it. They will give their input. This is to ensure it's diverse perspective, diverse view, and also you will get feedback from at least 2 of these judges on how you can improve your narrative going forward. And if you are in the top 50, based on this very rigorous review of judges, if you've made the eligibility, you've made the minimum criteria, and you've really shown across high ratings on these various areas, you will then move into round 2 judges, where it's a video call with high-level leaders, industry titans, other entrepreneurs that have really taken this journey, and they will really be grilling. Kidding, I don't know, Shar, how much grilling it is, but I'm sure it's not a talk, because they want to understand you much more closely. And by this point, you've already started to benefit from the network. You've already started to benefit from things like a boot camp. So you really enable already. Before then, moving into your top 20 finalists, which go through due diligence by the appointed independent reviewer. PwC. They are there to ensure that everything you've said is completely aligned, and that all the compliance is in place. Because once the ABH machine, as Shah mentioned, tens and tens of PR publications, press releases, and videos start to contact you, ABH wants to make sure that everything is above. But on top of that, they also want to support you that in the next stages, your ducks are completely and 100% in a row, such that when you go to the in-person pitch in Rwanda, Kigali this year, for those approved top 20, for those approved finalists, you are in the best place. And here you are now in the semi-finalist judges, and already really an ABH winner. Until then, the top 10 is chosen, which then goes to the grand finale and summit, as Danielle mentioned earlier. And so that journey is what I'd like to ask each of you to start to manifest. This is when you're going to be in November later this year. And if at any point you get stuck, we are here to support you. Use the live chat. Check out the WhatsApp line, and that's also available. There's questions that you can send to our email, and we will be having more of these sessions. The next one is 5th of April, so keep a lookout on the ABH website. You can come and ask more questions, and we'll go through more and more ways with different perspectives on how to tackle this application line. Would also love you and encourage that you check out Shah's work, follow him on LinkedIn. There's great work that he's doing there, and also just to give some inspiration around how the values of ABH are shining, and also how you can then get a better understanding of what ABH is looking for. Because the judges do Google you. They do go down your LinkedIn and down on your Facebook, and they check out before they meet with you whether is this the real deal or not. And of course, Shah is the real deal. And Shah, if you can take a couple more questions for us, please, we really appreciate it before we close off. I'm just going to go through the chat here and hand over to yourself, Danielle, if you could just help us with some of the questions that had come through before we close off in the next 5 minutes. I do see one here where the gentleman or lady Viviani is asking, does the person recommending need to be African? So the reference point, Shah, how did you approach this? I mean, it's really about credibility, authenticity, etc. And wherever they are in the world, as long as they can deliver that, I think is what's important. Do you have anything to add?
I think, Buntu, you summarized it perfectly. Try find the most credible people in your network. In my case, I was lucky enough to have just come out of an accelerator program. So I asked the head of that program, please give me a recommendation, as well as a VC that we were raising funds from, to back up the application. One was not based in South Africa, so it was an international recommendation. So just find that credibility network that either linked up to the judges or have maybe some familiarity with the community. I think that will serve you, and their message will go very far.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. And the other question that came in was from Abdul Karim. Abdul Karim is asking, is saying they would like to apply, but the company was created just this year and wondering if they're eligible. They do have previous record for revenue as an independent consultant, but now they're shifting into a business from a consultant. And so would this meet the requirements or not? These kind of cases tend to be unique, happy as well to take that one online, Abdul Karim, because the requirements are that you have 3 years of revenue, that you have been registered as a business, and maybe your unique case might make sense in terms of, if the storyline is all aligned, and that, you meet all the other eligibility criteria. And so please, let's take that one offline and we can chat and just confirm with you. But in terms of the eligibility criteria, I'd love to just go back to that slide to make sure for you in terms, or at least just to reiterate for everyone on the call, what the required minimum criteria is, which is that you are a formally registered business, and that you are operating and headquartered in Africa. So you should be registered, and that you should have a 3-year track record. Now, when it comes to some PwC might be looking at your business in terms of how you've told your story and how you're earning your business and your financial statements, etc., or management statements, or how you're tracking your revenue. I know that they do tend to apply themselves in terms of the accounting principles there. I don't know what your experience was, Shar, in that sense, and some of the other ABH colleagues as well, in terms of how was it when that due diligence process came across, and what was the highlights for you?
I think Buntu, a great focus for the entrepreneurs to place is really getting your data rooms in order. So from your compliancy, your tax clearance, which was a very big one for us at the time. So we managed to get all of that in order, your audited financial statements, or if it's in the process of being audited, get a letter from your accountant, just mentioning that it is in the process. And the customer testimonials make no regard to being audited by PwC. They will contact your clients to make sure that it is legit, and that's we gave them one of our biggest clients who got an email. So make sure that the clients that you are giving are able to provide on-time requirement for you, testimonial for you, just to ensure that your business is being implemented, your business is running. And ensuring that all of your compliancy, your registration documents are in order, financial statements are in order, and just making sure that does go back. For us, it was about 3 years audited financials. Tax clearance has to be up to date, VAT certificates and registrations. And Ubuntu, that's basically the blueprint and the cheat sheet.
So there you have it, guys. And this, don't let it shock you. You can work towards it. So Abdul Karim, please reach out to us on info@businessheroes.org, such that we can unpack and understand your situation more deeply. I will take now just 2 more questions. I've got one from Sophia, who's asking for the eligibility check, operation of 3 years. They started in 2020. And you've been working from home, but you don't have any proof. So you don't have any proof. Also, you are pre-revenue stage in the business. So how do you provide adequate details? So for all those who are pre-revenue, when it comes to the requirements and the eligibility requirements, I would recommend that you put your email into the register out of it. Unfortunately, their minimum requirements are to be post-revenue with at least 3 years. However, the program will be running for at least another 5 years. So it means that if you're not post-revenue yet, or don't have 3 years of revenue at this point, keep in the loop, and who knows, next year, 2 years, 3 years from now, you will be an African business hero and be where Shar is today. So please do keep in touch with us, Sophia, and all those who are pre-revenue. While those do cover many of the questions that I saw, I also see, Danny, you're also speaking about your track record. I'm then going to jump over that one and take just one more question, which is from Nasifu. Thanks so much, from Uganda. It's great to have you. And you're asking if, are we only looking for products or service? And ABH is open to product and services business. So you are very much welcome, sector agnostic, again, very inclusive, all ages of every single African country. And so that really brings us to the end of today. Lufuma, when you're coming to your question in terms of the necessity of being English speaking in the video, no, it doesn't have to be English. It should be in the application language you're using, as long as you translate any other language in that video. So thanks so much from your question from Angola. Muito obrigado, amigo. Thanks again, Shah, for your time today, continuous support, and totally appreciate everyone's time and coming in here and wishing you all the best in applying. Again, check out Trade Bricks. I think it's incredible what Shah is doing across the continent, connecting Africa to the world. I think it's a leverage point for many entrepreneurs, but also an inspiring journey in itself. And want to thank you again, Shah, for your time. From myself, Buntu from S Innovation Summit, I'm going to hand back over to Danielle and to close us off.
Thank you so much. Thank you to both.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those valuable insights. We truly hope that this session has motivated you to either start the
Thank you so
application
much.
journey or take your application to the next level. Thank you for joining and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me, and take care. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks so much. Take care. Thanks again. Please remember to fill in.
Yes, yes. Take care all.
There's a form in the chat. If you can click that on your way out, it's just 10 seconds. Please do remember to do that. And all the best with your application. Just a kind reminder again, for those that haven't started your application, there's a link as well in the chat that can start directing you to that.